What is going on, YouTube? I am here today to talk about something a little bit different, not any sort of fitness review. Today we are talking about my camera of choice for 2021, and that is the Canon EOS RP. This is a camera that I believe is the best value camera on the market today. Let me explain why. So the Canon EOS RP is not the best camera on the market. This is by far not going to beat the new R5 or R6. This is not going to contend with the Sony a7S III or the Sony FX3 or the Sony, a lot of numbers and letters. But for the price, this is going to be the best camera on the market today. And I think that this camera is perfect for a lot of people, and it gets overshadowed by some of the original reviews that were on YouTube when this camera first launched. When this camera first released, it was almost immediately overshadowed by the bigger brother, the Canon EOS R. And a lot of the bigger YouTube channels and medium YouTube channels went for that camera over this one for some pretty solid reasons. But that does not mean that this camera is not still the best value you can purchase today. So just to kind of go over what this camera is not, like I said, it's already not going to be for a professional high-level person. This is going to be more entry level. This is going to be for somebody that is like me, trying to build something with photography and trying to build something with video. This is not going to be for the established photographer per se. There was one exception I saw. There is apparently a very famous wedding photographer in Hawaii that picked up the RP as soon as it came out and used it forever. He loved it, thought it was the perfect wedding photography camera, and to a lot of extent I agree, because as with I think most Canon cameras, they are photography first, and this one doesn't really skimp on any of the photography aspects of their mirrorless line. The biggest noteworthy exception is that this is a slow camera. I think you're only shooting 3 or 4 frames a second with the high-speed continuous mode. The EOS R wasn't much better, but when you compare it to the R5 and R6 that are on the market today that are shooting 12 or 20 frames per second, it is incredibly slow. So again, this is not going to be for your action sports where you're trying to just freeze time and get everything in a second. But this is still a 26.2 megapixel camera. It's got their CMOS sensor. It's a great camera, especially for photography. Now, with the video side of things, like I said, it doesn't have all of the high-end features. There's no C-Log, so you're not going to be doing a lot of complex editing on this camera like you would on the EOS R or the R5, R6. There is a third-party program called CineStyle that you can download on here. I've heard a lot of people have some really good luck with it. I have not done that because honestly, I like the picture out of the camera. I'm okay with that. I'm not at a point right now where I am fine-tuned color grading all of my videos that I post to YouTube yet. So for me, not having C-Log is not a big deal. And I think for a lot of people that are trying to start a YouTube channel or just trying to do a little bit in video, but are more photography based, that's perfectly fine. You don't need C-Log in a camera. A couple of the other downsides about this camera, you don't have dual card slots. You only have the one card slot down here on the bottom. And while I'm down here, the battery that this camera uses is a smaller LPE17 battery, as opposed to what they use in all of the other R models. And as you can see, I actually use a third-party battery a lot of the time because frankly, I haven't noticed any battery difference in the two. So it does use a smaller battery, and that might be my biggest complaint about the camera, because now they have 3 mirrorless cameras, the R, R5, R6, and they all use the same battery. I don't know why they dumbed this one down. This one, I believe, is the same battery that they use in some of their older DSLR cameras, and I think the M50 might have a similar battery. I don't know why they couldn't just put the standard battery in this camera, because that is pretty much the one exception that keeps you from the full R mirrorless system that Canon is coming out with. I'll explain why in a second, but all the other features are pretty compatible with everything else. except the battery. So if you do upgrade, you're gonna have to buy new batteries, and that's one of the reasons I'm not gonna spend $60 on a Canon battery. I'm just gonna go with the $20 third-party ones off Amazon. They seem to work okay so far. You have a 30-minute record limit. Canon's known for that. I really don't know why they do it. I don't shoot a ton of long form stuff where that gets in my way, so I'm not too concerned about that. There is no in-body stabilization, but frankly, neither does the EOS R, which is the step up from this, and what a ton of people used instead of this. And so again, that's not a huge concern. And I've seen some footage from other cameras that have no in-body stabilization. I don't really mind it. I don't think my footage when I'm walking around talking with this camera is too shaky where it's making you nauseous. Please let me know in the comments below if you disagree. If you think my footage is a little too shaky, then maybe I stand corrected. But I seem to think it's not so bad. I feel like I can hold it out with little to no difficulty as far as that's concerned. Now that the negatives are out of the way, let's talk about why this is such a great camera for the money, why this is the best value camera out there. So first and foremost, this is a full frame camera. And I think this was one of the biggest selling points for me, was the fact that this sensor was a full frame sensor, a 26.2 megapixel, which is great all around, and it's full frame. It is an entry level camera. Everything else at this price range, you're gonna be looking at an APS-C camera. Sony has a lot in their a6000 lineup that is going to be within plus or minus $200-300 of this camera, but they are all APS-C sensors. I was looking for something full frame because, again, I'm not using this solely for YouTube and solely for filmmaking. I want something that I can take pictures with too, and I wanted a full frame camera for that purpose. I also wanted the flip screen. Again, something that for whatever reason, a lot of other cameras just don't want to include. They either flip all the way up or they flip out. They don't have this 360-degree flip screen. And I know Sony is adopting that now, but I'm not about to afford the a7S III. I need something that is much cheaper. When I was looking at cameras, honestly, I wanted the EOS R, but that was even out of my price range compared to this. And I know I haven't talked about price yet. I'll get to that in a second, and hopefully you understand why I love this camera so much. The RP is also a very small form factor. In fact, this is my iPhone XS Max. If you put them together, you can see it's very similar. I mean, obviously that's different, but looking at them side by side here, it's not much bigger, even the width. Very similar, a very compact form factor for a full frame camera. In addition to that, the file sizes on these are incredibly manageable. I edit everything now on my M1 MacBook Pro, but I did not have this when I bought this camera. Prior to purchasing that computer, I was editing every video that you see on this channel on a 6th generation iPad. Not an iPad Pro, nothing special. It was the base model 6th generation iPad that I originally picked up for like 250 bucks. And it handled it. Now, the more complicated my edits got, the longer they got. If I added a second layer of video or audio, it definitely slowed down. That's why I upgraded to the MacBook. But it was able to handle the video. I've actually edited quite a few videos on my iPhone with this camera, and it handled it fine. Editing off this camera, the file size is incredibly manageable. It's not gonna burn up your computer like some of the new cameras on the market today. Two of the other aspects that I love about this camera is the RF mount system. So this is not only a full frame camera, but they did not cripple it down to the EF mount, which honestly, for the price, you almost would expect them to do. They gave you the full RF capability, which is the future of Canon cameras. One of the biggest reasons I decided not to go with an M50, because I wanted to have lens options in the future. I wanted to be able to purchase lenses today that were gonna work for future cameras. Canon has made it clear they are moving to this new RF mount system, and it's here to stay. So I wanted to be an early adopter of it as best I could. Now, I don't have any RF lenses to date. The RF lenses that are out right now, for the most part, are extremely expensive. Canon is focusing their efforts on their professional line of lenses. However, we have seen offerings like the 7200 f4, which in my opinion is kind of opening the door for their more entry-level lenses to start hitting the market soon. Because I don't have any RF glass yet, I just throw on this adapter. I have a third-party adapter, but this one is specifically from Canon, and what this adapter does is it allows me to use any EF lens out there. All the complaints on the prior videos that you used to see that say the lenses are too expensive to move to it, this is my EOS RP with my 17-40 lens, my main video vlogging lens, and this lens works perfectly. Not a single complaint about it. There's no issue with autofocus. Even on the third-party adapter that I use, the lenses work perfectly. And I can also use third-party lenses. This is a Sigma 24-70 f2.8. This is what I take almost all of my pictures with. It's an amazing lens, and it works flawlessly on the RP, just as you would expect any RF glass to work. So again, another big complaint about the RF system is that there's no third-party support, but with an adapter, you have every EF lens that's out there. And Sigma was making EF lenses, so you have third-party support. I understand that it is an additional step and it does cost a little bit extra money, but the third-party adapters are only gonna be about $50. Now, this particular one, which frankly lives on my camera, I never take it off. This one costs $200 because this has the control ring adapter. So with the RF system that Canon is coming out with, all of their lenses have a control ring. Can you hear that? It is a nice clicky control ring that you can set up for, I have it set up for ISO. You can do white balance, you can do shutter, aperture. Personally, this is my aperture, this is my shutter, so why not control my ISO with it? I typically am not screwing around with my white balance that much to want a dedicated ring for it. And I know a lot of the big time YouTube reviewers don't use this, they have no function for it. I do. This is my first high level camera. I love being able to control the ISO for it. And frankly, this little lock switch up here, I use that all the time too. A lot of people don't, a lot of people say they don't in their review. I use it constantly because when I'm vlogging, I want to set my settings. I'll typically do auto ISO, set my shutter, set my aperture, and then I'll lock it out. And that locks out the screen, the ring, and these switches. Because when I'm walking around on my tripod, I notice that I'll touch the screen, I'll screw up the autofocus, and then I have a ton of shots that aren't in focus because I was touching around on this really nice full touchscreen flip LCD display. See what I did there? It's another amazing feature, full touchscreen. So I lock it out so I don't mess up any of the settings. So these two features that a lot of people say they don't use, I use. And you get all of this for $900. I think this camera came out about $1,300 brand new. I picked this up on Canon's refurbished website for $900. That's incredible. That makes this the best value camera on the market because you cannot find anything close to this price range. Yes, there are APS-C cameras that are very similar in megapixels, maybe similar in the frame rates and things like that. This isn't a great 4K camera either, but this is full frame, 26 megapixel RF system, which in my opinion, the RF system is fantastic. The lenses look amazing. The control ring is a really nice touch that I use constantly. This is an amazing camera for $900. The EOS R is still about double the price of this camera, and they only go up from there. If you want a full frame, if you are really trying to get into a lot of photography and videography, pick this camera up. It's amazing. I love it. And I'd recommend it to anybody. A lot of the old reviews, like I said, they didn't like two things. No 24 frames a second, which was fixed, and the lack of full HD on an EFS lens when using an adapter. Well, I just checked that. That's also fixed. So the only two complaints that held off people from recommending this camera to everybody have been fixed. Now there's an argument to be made that Canon cripples their cameras. I'm not gonna go into that here. What I can tell you is they fixed the major complaints in firmware updates. So now there is no reason that this camera isn't for anybody that is trying to pick up a good value camera, something that can get their foot in the door for photography, videography, give you a really high quality full frame image for under $1,000. So if you disagree with me, let me know in the comments below. I will argue this camera as much as I can. If you like this video, if you like this overview of the camera, make sure you hit a thumb up on the video. Make sure other people see it, share it to your friends. If you know somebody looking for a camera, let them know, get the RP, and send them this video to let them know why. Hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any videos, and I will make sure to see you in the next video. Remember, we are all in progress. Have a great day.